All right. Good afternoon to you all, and happy Friday. Happy Friday to you. And after finishing my briefing and the questions, Reem Abaza will be here to brief on behalf of the President of the General Assembly. As you know, this is her last briefing as a spokeswoman for the President of the General Assembly, as the new president will take over in the 75th with a new spokesperson, Brendan Varma. I think we all agree that Reem has been absolutely fantastic during her job here, and in fact, much, much nicer than me when faced with unpleasant questions. So Reem, thank you all for your great work this past year, and we hope to keep seeing you in some other capacity. In remarks to a virtual session of the General Assembly and the Security Council this morning, the Secretary General discussed his 2020 review of the peacebuilding architecture. He told member states that looking at the suffering around the world, we know that the human and financial cost of focusing primarily on crisis response is unsustainable. He said that the center of his 2020 report is the conviction that multidimensional, integrated, and whole of society responses are vital to meet the challenges of the 21st century and leave no one behind. He added that despite this progress, adequate and predictable and sustained financing for peacebuilding remains a critical challenge. His remarks have been made available to you. And today, the special representative and head of the UN assistance mission in Afghanistan, Deborah Lyons, said that the UN family in Afghanistan welcomes the upcoming face-to-face peace talks between Afghan parties in Doha, Qatar. She stressed that the suffering of the Afghan people has gone on far too long. Ms. Lyons said that tomorrow's opening event can be the start of something truly momentous, and that negotiators from the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and the Taliban have a unique opportunity to save lives of many of their compatriots and to lift the country out of poverty and misery. Ms. Lyons wished them every success and emphasized that the UN will be there to support them as required. While the ultimate goal of talks is to silence the guns forever, an immediate reduction and unconditional reduction of violence would create a much more conducive environment for constructive talks, she added. In the context of the health and economic challenges posed by the COVID-19 virus, poverty, natural disaster, pause to fighting would enable critical humanitarian aid to reach the millions that require assistance across Afghanistan. And Security Council members met in a closed video teleconference session this morning on Myanmar. Council members were briefed on the Secretary General's were briefed by the Secretary General's Special Envoy for Myanmar, Christine Schreiner-Bergener, the High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, and Connie Winyaraja, the UN Development's Assistant Administrator and Director of the Regional Bureau for Asia and the Pacific. Turning to the situation in Greece, the Secretary General, in a tweet posted last night, said he had been following the devastation from the fire at the Moria camp on the island of Lesbos. He added that the solution lies in caring for all the people affected, especially the most vulnerable, starting with transferring the population to the mainland. The initial fire broke out on 8 September, causing extensive damage to thousands of shelters from asylum seekers and common areas. Today, the UN Refugee Agency said that more fires were reported on September 9th and also as well as yesterday. The latest fires have affected the adjacent fields next to Moria Reception and Identification Center, destroying what remaining accommodations were still available. While no casualties have thankfully been reported to date, the fire has now left 11,500 asylum seekers without adequate shelter, sleeping on streets, fields, and beaches on the island. Among them are 2,200 women and 4,000 children. The UN Refugee Agency warned that the coronavirus pandemic is also adding to an already desperate situation. UNHCR has been offering support to Greek authorities to help protect and assist impacted asylum seekers. And the UN Human Rights Office and UNESCO today condemned the murder of journalist Julio Valdivia Rodriguez in the state of Veracruz in Mexico. He worked as a correspondent for a newspaper on the border region between the states of Veracruz and Oaxaca. Mr. Valdivia Rodriguez is the fourth journalist to have been murdered in Mexico this year. The Human Rights Office and UNESCO call on authorities to investigate his murder in accordance with the standards of due diligence so that this crime does not remain unpunished. The Secretary General lends his voice to this condemnation, and as you know, he has repeatedly spoken out on this issue, stressing that all journalists should be able to do their work freely and in safety without fear of death or harm. And on Cambodia, we have an update on what our colleagues at the UN team there, led by resident coordinator Pauline Tamesis, is doing to address the COVID-19 pandemic. The UN and the government are working together. The UN and the government are working together to help the poorest households, rolling out a cash transfer scheme that will help an initial group of more than 600,000 people living below the poverty line. We've provided 1,700 tablets to authorities to track these transfers and identify health, nutrition, and educational needs. This has led to cash transfers to include pregnant women and households with children below the age of 2. The UN Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and UNICEF are helping the government with distance learning for more than 3 million Cambodian students who are out of school due to the pandemic. Educational programs are being broadcast on official channels and over social media networks with more than 1 million views. The UN's work on education also includes sign language, braille, and radio programs for multilingual education. And on a separate issue on Cambodia, the UN Human Rights Office today expressed its concern over recent arrests of human rights defenders. The office calls on the government to immediately and unconditionally release people detained for exercising their rights to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and association. It also calls on the government to end intimidation of civil society actors. And turning to the occupied Palestinian territory, the UN humanitarian coordinator there, Jamie McGoldrick, said that Israeli authorities' policy of demolishing Palestinian-owned structure has continued even during the COVID-19 pandemic, undermining many people's access to livelihood and services. In a statement issued yesterday, he said that from March to August of this year, 389 Palestinian-owned structures in the West Bank were demolished or confiscated. That's an average of 65 per month, the highest average in years. More than 400 Palestinians have been left homeless due to these demolitions. And on Sudan, which saw torrential rains and floods this week, the World Health Organization said today it's providing surgical supplies and medicine. Nearly 30 health facilities were damaged, although this has not led to a major interruption in services. WHO said Sudan's health system continues from years of underfunding, staff shortages, weakened infrastructure, and the lack of essential equipment and supply. Together with the government and its partners, WHO has identified the needs and responded to disease alerts, including diarrhea, measles, and COVID-19 and others. More information online. And that is it for me before we turn to Reem. Bear with me 2 seconds. All right. James Bays with a week's worth of questions, I have no doubt.
I've got 3, if that's okay. So first, to pick up on one of the things that you are just talking about, Afghanistan and the forthcoming talks between the government and the Taliban, you said what the SRSG's view was. Can I ask you about the Secretary General's view on the situation, given that it's 19 years since US troops arrived, a country that's had 40 years of conflict? With that historical perspective, how does the SG see this moment and the chances for peace? I think you might have frozen.
James, I have to tell you, James, while you were away, things were working absolutely perfectly. We had sound, we had video, but I'm just disappointed you didn't use your time off to get a haircut. But anyway, go ahead. Let's try again.
You want me to ask the question again?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
So 40 years of conflict in Afghanistan, 19 years since the Americans arrived. We heard what the SRSG says, but what does the SG think? Given that historical perspective, how does the SG see this moment and the possibilities of the chance of peace?
For him, I think the start of the negotiations are a major opportunity to achieve what has been the long-held aspirations of the people of Afghanistan for peace. It's crucial that all Afghan leaders and members of the international community do everything possible to make the peace a reality. We obviously stand ready to help. I think obviously there are many critical issues that will have to be looked at, but I think one that always needs underscoring is to ensure that the rights of women and girls in Afghanistan are not overlooked, and that they have their voices, their rights, and their lives are respected and protected. The Secretary General will be speaking to the Afghan talks in Doha via pre-recorded video message, and we will share with you an embargoed version of the message, which will be embargoed till some point overnight.
A second question regards Libya, and there is now a new draft resolution for the UNSMIL mandate, which looks like it's going to be put to a vote early next week. It is suggesting a formula that maybe will break the deadlock on this issue. As you know, the US had been wanting to divide the roles in two, and now they're suggesting there'll be a special envoy who concentrates on mediation, but under his authority there'll be a day-to-day coordinator. One, are the Secretariat happy with this compromise measure? And number two, now that it looks like there is something potentially moving forward, do you have a new candidate for the special envoy role, and do you hope that now can be filled very quickly?
Well, I mean, we obviously are guided by whatever emanates from the Security Council chambers. We do understand there will be a new mandate with possibly a new structure. The Secretary General will act upon it. The issue of leadership is one that we hope will be solved quickly. In the meantime, Stephanie Williams remains firmly in charge of the mission. Your third question.
Third and final question, crediting the reporting of Pass Blue on this one. The UN General Assembly speakers list. You have to wait, despite this gender equality being one of the main themes of this GA and of the UN in general, you have to wait 53 speakers for a woman speaker, none on the first day of the general debate. Is the Secretary General happy with that?
Well, I think the Secretary General and the UN, as various UN agencies, have always called for more women in leadership positions. It is not, as you well know, for the Secretary General, to establish the speakers list, and not most importantly, to decide who is the head of state, the head of government, foreign minister of each country. It is clear that the world would benefit from greater representation of women at the highest levels. We're not there. For his part, the Secretary General, I think, has pushed through a very audacious and strong push on gender equality. And as you know, at the leadership level at the UN, we do have we have gender parity. Welcome back, James. Evelyn, and then Ali.
Yes. Hi, Steph. Is there any word on 9/11? It's the 19th anniversary today, and we're all in New York.
No, I mean, it's very much aware of the 19th marking of the 19th anniversary of the Twin Tower bombings. I think, you know, for the UN, it's both personal and professional in a sense. All of us who work here, whether staff members, diplomats, and journalists, are also New Yorkers. Many of us were here on that day. I know of a number of colleagues who lost loved ones during the attack. So it's a somber day, a day of commemoration. And globally, it was also it marked the start of a new world, so to speak. But we did see, I think, tremendous global solidarity here at the UN in the days, in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, and we saw the world speaking in one voice against terrorism. Okay, Ali.
Thank you, Steph. I have a question on Lebanon.
Are you on a boat?
I wish.
Yeah.
So yesterday there was a huge fire at the very port that witnessed the huge explosion, and there is a lot of damage, including they say evidence, but also some assistance came from over the world to Lebanon were vanished. I wonder whether you have information about whether the UN aid sustained any damage or anything, and what would you say about just erasing the evidence from what possibly could be a crime scene?
No, I mean, listen, we're aware of the secondary fire that that broke out. As far as I know, we have no information as to the source of it or what could have happened. We're aware of a number of different theories, but we have no forensic information, so to speak. Our work in Lebanon continues. I think, as we outlined yesterday, we're continuing to help the people of Beirut. All of the people, regardless whether they're citizens, refugees, or migrants, and we will continue to do that.
Was there any damage to UN aid? And I have another question.
I'm not aware. None has been reported up to me. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but none's been reported.
And my other question is about the rising tension in the Eastern Mediterranean, and whether the United Nations or the Secretary General has anything to say about what's happening there.
Nothing more than I said than what I said last week, that we've been in touch with the various parties, and we very much hope that these current tensions will be solved through diplomatic channels. We've noted there have been direct talks between the Turkish and Greek representatives under the auspices of NATO, and we hope this dialogue will continue in a positive atmosphere. Okay, Abdelhamid Eidi.
Thank you, Stéphane. First, a follow-up to my question yesterday about Israeli violation of Lebanese airspace by a drone, and you said you will get back to me about it. And then I have a question.
What I can tell you is that yesterday around 5:20 p.m. Local time, I assume, the Lebanese Armed Forces informed UNIFIL that it had shot down a drone it said was coming from Israel in the general area of Aita Ashab in southern Lebanon. A UNIFIL team visited the site and inspected the drone, and the Lebanese Armed Forces claimed to have downed. UNIFIL is currently following up with the IDF to confirm the identity of the drone in question and has launched an investigation into the incident. Go ahead.
Stéphane, about the Saudi courts which issued sentences about those guilty of killing Khashoggi, and they said the case is closed. It didn't satisfy international standards. You know, the statement of Ines Kalamar and the statement of Mr. Colville, the spokesman of the UNHCR. Now, my question is not hypothetical, it's procedural. Suppose Turkey came up to the Secretary General with a demand to investigate it. What would be
say again?
Suppose Turkey now requested an international investigation and submitted an official request to the Secretary General. What will be the response of the Secretary General?
The fact is we have never officially received any request for an official investigation from any country on this. Should one be received, it would be studied, and we would have to see exactly what it says and what it's asking. So I think we've and I'll leave it at that. Okay, Edie.
Thank you, Steph. I have a couple of questions also. First, does the Secretary General have any comment on Syria reporting Israeli airstrikes near Aleppo? Apparently, the Syrians say these have been going on in recent weeks.
Listen, I have no specific information on these reported airstrike. I think our message is to the parties is the same, is that what Syria needs is a recommitment by all the parties and those who have an influence over the parties to peaceful, to the political dialogue led by the UN. But as far as these reports of airstrikes, I have no specific information on this at this point. Next question.
On Myanmar, you told us who briefed. We didn't get any indication of what they might have said. I realize this is a closed meeting, but Myanmar is a major issue. And
I understand. Let me see what we can squeeze out and share with you.
Okay. And thirdly, can you remind us when the Secretary General's pre-UNGA press conference is going to be, and is the UN going to be putting out a compiled list of side events?
Yes, the list, we'll see what we will share with you what we can. It will not be a long list. On the press conference, and we'll send out an email with that information. The Secretary General will be in the press briefing room on the 16th on Wednesday next week for his big pre-GA press conference. If you're interested, we are capping the limit of journalists in the room at 10 with masks. Please contact UNCA as they are coordinating the access. We expect the Deputy Secretary General to be with us the next day to talk about the SDG moment and the SDG related issues coming to the GA, and we're trying to also organize some sort of a background briefing for you guys on the Secretary General's speech, which he'll deliver on the 22nd, and there will also be an embargoed press briefing at some point next week by Fabrizio Hochschild on the UN 75 and the results of the survey. The results will be released on the 21st. But we're organizing a briefing for you ahead of that. Just so you know, I will be doing briefings remotely Monday and Tuesday. There will not be a noon briefing on Wednesday. I will be in the building on Thursday and then back remotely on Friday. And then next week on Monday, I will probably brief. And then during the first couple of days of the GA, we will not be briefing. That's it. Iftikhar and then Ben and yes, Iftikhar and then Ben.
Thank you, Steph. My question on Afghanistan was asked by James, but may I ask you whether any UN representative will be physically present in Qatar to monitor intra-Afghan dialogue?
Yes, the special representative of the Secretary General will be in Doha. She will not be at the table, as this is not a UN process, but she will be able to monitor the talks, but she will be in Doha. Ben, if you don't mind, I skipped over Ibtisam, and I'd like to hear from her.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. So my question is about Egypt. Human Rights Watch issued a long report today about a case of gang rape in which the victim is being accused. So the part of the human rights is saying that that the Egyptian authorities have arrested the witnesses to the gang rape after encouraging them to come forward instead of prosecuting, instead of protecting them and prosecuting the attackers. The case against the witnesses and the smear campaign against them and the rape survivors send a chilling message to survivors of sexual violence and witnesses that they can go to prison if they report sexual violence. Do you have any comments or statement about that?
Look, I've just seen the Human Rights Watch report, which you flagged to us. So we're looking, and our colleagues at the Human Rights Office, we've asked them to look into what's clearly a very troubling report. What I can tell you, as you know, as a matter of principle, because we've heard reports of these types of reaction in many parts of the world, and that, as a matter of principle, is that survivors of sexual assault need to be heard, they need to be protected, and they need to be encouraged to report cases as well as witnesses to these attacks. And that's the ability to come forward either as a victim or as a witness and be protected is really fundamental to the rule of law. Anything that deters that, I think, is a challenge to a goal that we all share, which is equal protection under the law. And I'll leave it at that, but we'll try to get some details on that particular case.
I have a follow-up. I just to understand to which extent such issues come up when, especially that we see partly not only in Egypt but in other countries, as you said, systematic or ill treatment of victims, or racist too in other countries. To which extent these issues come up in meetings between the Secretary General and head of states? Because,
well, they you know, different issues come up in different meetings as appropriate. But this is an issue that the Secretary General has been very vocal about. We have regular reporting from the Special Representative of on sexual violence. This also comes up regularly in human rights reports, in reports from UN Women, from the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. So this is something that we always try to shine a light on and do not shy away from. Mr. Ivansky.
Thank you. Just on the SG's presser, what time is that going to be?
Noon. And he usually is on time as opposed to me.
You mentioned about the idea of 14-day quarantine for leaders and delegations coming in. But is there some sort of rule that diplomats can bypass that and just visit for 24 hours?
Any issues having to do between diplomats and the host country, that's a question you need to ask the host country. What I can tell you is on the part of the UN staff, we have not asked for any derogation. As you know, the Secretary General himself went to Portugal. He came back, stayed 2 weeks in the residence. A number of other colleagues that we work with every day, Melissa Fleming or others, come back and they follow the 2 week. They follow the quarantine. So we make it a point to follow the guidelines and the instructions from the host city, from the host authority. We encourage, as we always do, the diplomatic community, the UN community here in New York, to follow the rules and guidelines of the host country. But whether or not there's a derogation, that's a discussion that needs to be held between each permanent mission and the host country. Stefano Vacara.
Thank you, Stéphane. I'm sorry I got late today, so I don't know if it was asked already, it was asked yesterday. So we found out that Trump knew well before how dangerous the COVID-19 was and how could be spread and everything. So when exactly the Secretary General knew the kind of the same information then that we know that President Trump practically find out at the end of January, did the Secretary General find out exactly how dangerous was this the new virus before, after? Can you give us a timing?
Listen, I'm not going to get into this Washington debate that's ongoing. What I can tell you is that the Secretary General's has always been guided by the advice he received from the World Health Organization, which was advice that was shared publicly.
I'm sorry, no, just no, because it's not because I want you to comment on Washington or President Trump. It's just that the debate that is worldwide is that the leadership of the world, so not only in America, failed everywhere in making aware people how dangerous and how
the Secretary General did not sit on any knowledge that he had about the severity of this virus that he did not speak to publicly. Okay. I think that comes to the end of our programming. So for one last time, I get to throw it over to Reem. Reem, thank you again for your cooperation, and have fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stéphane, and good afternoon, everyone. We'll start today with the in-person plenary meetings scheduled for later today. The President of the United Nations General Assembly, Tijani Muhammad Bandi, is convening in-person plenary meeting of the General Assembly this afternoon at 3 p.m. During the meeting, the final version of the draft omnibus resolution on the COVID-19 pandemic will be presented for adoption by the Assembly. The President expresses his sincere appreciation to Mrs. Adela Raz, Permanent Representative of Afghanistan, and Mr. Ivan Simonovic, Permanent Representative of Croatia to the United Nations, the co-coordinators for the General Assembly on COVID-19 related initiatives, for their leadership and tireless efforts in facilitating the intergovernmental negotiations on this omnibus resolution. Right after that meeting, the President will be convening a plenary meeting of the 31st special session of the General Assembly in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Tijani Muhammad Bandi, who is also the president of the special session, circulated a letter on Wednesday from the permanent representative of Azerbaijan, Mr. Yashar Aliyev, and the deputy permanent representative of Canada, Ms. Louise Blaise. The letter conveys the revised version of the resolution on the modalities of the special session, including its scope, format, date, and outcome. The co-facilitators invited the membership into a third informal consultations on the revised text on Thursday. I would like to add that the Occupational Safety and Health team concluded that the meeting is at low risk if precautionary measures aimed at mitigating the spread of COVID-19 are put in place, and there is a list of these measures on our website. During a virtual meeting this morning on the UN Human Rights Treaty body system, the President of the General Assembly said that the widely implemented social distancing measures to control the COVID-19 pandemic have shifted consultations on the review process of this treaty body system from mostly offline to mostly online. He added that member states have swiftly adapted to hybrid working methods and submitted 90 written contributions assessing the functioning of the treaty body system and the implementation of UN General Assembly Resolution 68/268. Throughout the process, civil society, academia, and the private sector have played an important role, sharing best practices and suggesting further improvement. The President said that this is a major achievement for everyone involved in this process. We must continue to give priority to transparency and inclusion, he added. And the President convened on Thursday a high-level forum on the occasion of the 21st anniversary of the Declaration and Program of Action on a Culture of Peace. It was guided by the theme, the culture of peace, change our world for the better in the age of COVID-19. Mr. Mohammed Bandi spoke about the disruption in education and its significant impacts on poverty eradication, food insecurity, economic instability, and sustainable development. He pointed out that growing data suggests a rise in domestic violence, violence against women and children, and frontline workers. He added that hate speech and disinformation leading to stigma, discrimination, and xenophobia continue to increase due to COVID-19. The president said, the pandemic is far from over and its long-term consequences are yet to be seen. If we can deal with the crisis, we must appreciate that it will also offer an opportunity to change our world, but only if we succeed in building back better in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. And he added that a culture of peace is more than just the absence of conflict, as it embraces the interrelationship between peace and development. Also yesterday, at an event to mark South-South Day, the President of the General Assembly said that COVID-19 has exacerbated pre-existing inequalities, with people who were previously in precarious situations being plunged even deeper into poverty and hunger. He pointed out that an estimated of 71 million people will fall into extreme poverty by the end of this year. He said it is essential at the outset of the decade of action and delivery to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, to utilize the South-South cooperation framework. And this approach has the potential to contribute to achieving our targets on poverty eradication, zero hunger, climate change, and inclusion. The full statement is online. And on a personal note, and as the session comes to its end on Tuesday, September 15, I would like to thank you all very much for your work and our interactions throughout the year. It was an honor to serve in this capacity during the 74th session of the General Assembly, and a truly huge privilege to work closely with each one of you. I would like also to thank Stéphane and all colleagues in the spokesperson's office, BCSS and UNTV for their support. And I would like to wish my dear colleague Brendan Varma, the spokesperson of the President of the 75th session of the General Assembly, that will celebrate also the anniversary of the UN. And Brendan, of course, is not new to this job, and he has a long experience in the field of communications and media. I would like to wish him my sincerest best wishes for a successful year. And now I'm ready for your questions. Okay, I would like, yes, Ibtisam, please.
Hi, Reem. Actually, for a change, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your work, for being not only so professional, but also helpful all the time, answering all questions, sending material. Really thanks for the great work you have been doing. It was a pleasure and honor to work with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ibtisam. I really appreciate it. Edie, please.
Reem, I have a question when you get to it. Reem, I also would like to add my thanks for all your help again, for everything that you've done for the correspondence. You've been exceedingly helpful. I have two questions. First, at today's plenary, will the GA go back to its old traditional way of voting, that, you know, there's the big board with every country, unless, of course, the resolution is adopted by consensus, which could happen. So I'll let you answer that, and then I have one more question.
Yes, absolutely. It will go back to the traditional way of voting in today's in-person meeting.
Good. My second question is that will the handover from the 74th to the 75th session, Is that on the 15th?
Yes, Tuesday, 15th.
Tuesday, right. I assume that's going to happen in the morning, and will that be at a plenary at UN headquarters like today's plenary?
So the plan will be to have this in person, but we are still waiting for the risk assessment. So we will let you know as soon as we get this, because any event that requires people to be together, we like to hear first to be safe, on the safe side, to safeguard everyone's health.
Okay, but as of the moment, it's likely to be in person and in the morning, I assume, which is usual.
Absolutely, yeah. And we will give you more information as soon as we have clarity on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Dulcie, you have a question? No, okay.
No.
Okay.
I put something in the chat, and I wanted to thank you.
Thank you so much.
You know, I always felt like working with you was so refreshing, because we got information that we needed, and our emails were not ignored. It was really refreshing, and sorry to see you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Iftikhar, please. Okay, no, it's not a question. I'm sorry. I have to read the. It's not a question. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And Abdelhamid is not a question. Also, thank you for your message. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Your pleasure. It was a pleasure to working with you, and I appreciate your arrangement for me to interview the President of the 74th General Assembly. I'm proud of you coming from that same office, what you are now chairing. Okay, so great. And I'm sure we will meet next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I really wish my colleague Brendan, that most of you know him already. He was the spokesperson for the PGA at its 72nd session. He has a long experience. He's a colleague in the Department of Global Communications. I wish him all the luck. Yes, and Stéphane. Thank you. Stefano has a question, please.
Yes, I thank you, of course, like everybody else. I thank you again, and good luck for everything else that you're going to do. Well, I have a question I ask Stéphane too. It would be interesting to know what the president of the General Assembly thinks about the timing on knowing things about the COVID-19. So if you can share with us, if you can tell us when he exactly knew how dangerous was the date, and also what he thinks about how leadership around the world are not concentrating only in Washington, everybody talking about President Trump. But it will be interesting to know what he thinks, how the leadership in the world behaved in informing the public. Because maybe in the world, we could have saved lives if the leadership will have shared more information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And what I can tell you, I don't have a specific date to tell you right now when he knew, but the PGA was always guided by what the World Health Organization has advised us all. And in several of his speeches on COVID-19, especially in the beginning, he always refers to WHO on this. And he believes in WHO's competency in letting us all know about the situation of COVID-19. They did a great job, and the PGA fully supports them. So this is all I can say about this for now. Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria, for your message. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, Reem, Pam Falk here. I have a question.
Yes, Pam. Thank you. I didn't see you, and I wasn't sure who said I have a question. I thought it was Dulcie. So please go ahead.
No, first, when the protocol office would be aware of whether any of the heads of state are coming in person. And number we may get it in a tweet, but when will they be informed? Because they have to make provisions. And number two is there was a US-UN memo, but what were you advised in terms of what came up before in the questions, in terms of heads of state? There is this 2-week quarantine, but if they offer anything else like a test on the day of, is there any exemption? I know the memo said no exemptions, but were you aware of a policy that might exempt anyone who wanted to come without the 2-week quarantine? So thanks.
Sure.
You may not have these answers, but thanks again for everything you've done.
Thank you so much, Pam. Okay, so about the memo, we're not involved in this, as you know, of course, and we don't have any information about any exceptions for that. So we don't have any more information than what you have already. And you said the other question was about when, if a leader will be coming to address the general debate. The president of the General Assembly was asked about this question in his end of session press conference on Tuesday. And he said that he doesn't have any information about whether any world leader will be coming to the GA Hall to deliver their speeches. So I don't have any other information other than that.
But if someone informs protocol, what would be the last date, let's put it that way, that they would be able to tell you? I mean, is it the day of, the day before? When would they have to tell you?
Because, of course, it's secretariat, so it's not the office of the president of the General Assembly. So I might refer you to them, and I can happily connect you with someone, from the protocol office, our colleagues there. Maybe they can help with answering.
That would be very helpful. We haven't had direct contacts with them before. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the kind words and messages. And I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And good luck with everything.
Reem, thank you very much, and thank you also for answering all the very difficult questions that we asked you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Okay. Thank you, and have a very nice weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. We'll miss you.
It won't call you this weekend.